Hey there, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me with Conversations with Coaches. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jennifer Tamborski. I'm the CEO and Chief Strategist at Virtual Marketing Experts, and I have the unique opportunity to talk with coaches every day. And I like to share their message with you. Today, I have Denise Hansard with me. Denise, I would love for you to introduce yourself, tell them who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Perfect. Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you for having me on. I really appreciate this opportunity. So, again, I'm Denise Hansard. I am a life architect. And what I do is I help women, professional women or entrepreneurs, to really begin to design their life from the inside out, owning all of their worth for everything that they do, they give, etc., and everything like that. Because that's one of the things that we have an opportunity to do is as women decide for our gifts, we have them, and then to own them in our own unique way, not according to somebody else.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's something that people in general often struggle with, right? Accepting their gifts and in owning them, really understanding what they are and owning them.
Yes,
So
definitely.
we hear like the word transformation, and there's a lot going on in the world right now, right? There's a lot between COVID and in the US and actually worldwide with the Black Lives Matter movement. And just in general, it seems like the world itself is in a transformation stage of some kind. So for you, what does transformation mean, and how is it different just from a general change?
Yeah, good question. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Well, as you stated, we are going through, and I know people are tired of hearing this, but we're going through transformational times. There's really no other way to put it. And a lot of people say we're going through changes, which is true also, but the difference between the two, transformation is that thing where you kind of get thrown into it. You didn't choose it. Okay? It's like we didn't choose a pandemic and we're transforming through it. We didn't choose the Black Lives Matters, in that case, or the systemic racism, or our systems breaking down. Everybody working remotely, staying distance from each other, things like that. Learning to do our calls and networking via Zoom or whatever means, Skype. We didn't choose that because of what is going on now with the growth that I feel like universally we are stepping into. This is where transformation becomes different from change. Change is that which we externally, we see something in our life and we say, oh, I can make a change. Or we feel something in our lives and going, oh, I'm going to choose to change that. Your behaviors, your thinking, et cetera, and everything along those lines. So that to me is the biggest difference between transformation and change. One is you get to change within transformation by making the choices of how you're going to do it. But transformation is just a thing we go through, period.
There has been, and I have to agree with you, there's a lot of, and I've seen it all over social media about the idea that the whole world is transforming, that we're evolving per se, or really that there's a transformation happening. And you're right in that we all have a choice on how to react to it. So can you tell me more about, when people are required to make a choice and they don't really feel like they have a choice in what's all of insanity, right? Whether it's the pandemic, that they don't have a choice and they're struggling through that. So, how do people kind of work through that and that feeling of not having a choice?
Yeah, and we recognize, everything that I do, excuse me, is about recognizing that you have a choice in everything, because everything is a choice. Even if we decide, I just want to go back to bed and pull the covers over my head. I don't want to deal with that today. Therein lies our choice. What we can do, and especially now when it feels as if we are getting avalanches avalanches. I don't even know how many times I can say it, but avalanches of things thrown at us in a different way than we have as our norm or what we've been comfortable with. So all of a sudden it feels like the rug has been pulled out from underneath us while an earthquake is going on. And by the way, the floor is cracking open.
That's
That's what
so
it feels
true.
like.
Often it does. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's at that time that we have to really step back and dive deep into who we are and say, who can I be at this moment? It's not about where I'm going in the future. It's not about what happened in the past. It's what story do we have at this moment that we get to create from our own choices. We can freak out. I've done that, definitely. We can break down and cry. I've done that too. Or we can step back, take a breath and say, you know what? I need a slight pause moment so that I can pivot. I just want a 5-minute pause. I'm going to put life on hold, that I can just go be with myself, breathe deeply, get out into nature, do something that takes your mind off of all the chaos that's going on, and just slow down. I mean, that's what's going on today, is we're given that moment to pause, to slow down, and to dive deep within and decide what really matters.
Yeah. Making that choice, and you're right, like that's one of the things that I've said repeatedly about the pandemic, is that I feel, and I don't know about you and everyone listening, but I feel like everybody has said for years, I don't have enough time, I don't have time, I don't have time. And so the universe, the world went, okay, here's time.
Totally. Totally.
And so now we all get to choose what we do next, right? What that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So with everything that's going on in the world, do you have some tips for our audience for really about how to cope, right, with that
Yeah.
emotional overload, with the breakdown of whatever it was that they're struggling with?
Definitely, definitely. And I tell this to a lot of my own clients and to friends, it does not matter. Because we're not working in the norm of what we knew before. Say you work in the corporate world. You typically got up, you did your routine, and you went to work. So you physically moved your body out, whether it took you an hour's commute and you drove, or you commuted via train or subway or whatever it was. You got to begin to prepare yourself for a day at work,
Mhm.
because that's what it was about. And then you got to leave it, even though most of the time we brought it home with us. Or if you're an entrepreneur where you're accustomed to walking out of your bedroom, grabbing coffee and coming into your office, it still is different, because everything else out there is different. We don't get to do our networking events. We don't get to have luncheons. We don't get to hang out at in the coffee room or grab coffee with people, things like that. And that, because it's different, it's a change. And change is, I think it's Robin Sharma, that there's a quote out there that says, change is hard at the beginning, messy in the middle, but it's absolutely beautiful at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that process of going through things, but it exhausts us. And especially when we started into this process of working remotely, changing our lives, the exhaustion factor is the thing that I kept hearing from people. We may have gotten accustomed to working remotely and doing things differently, and yet the information that's bombarding us day in, day out, no matter what, regardless if you've limited the amount of TV or news or anything you're watching, you're still on your computer, you're still on your phone, it's still hitting you in every way, shape, or form. And so what I recommend, you have to take more breaks. You can't sit down and work continuously for 2 to 3 hours without taking a break. You really should be working like an hour at the most. I say 50 minutes, get up, take a break. For 10 minutes, come back, do another 50 minutes, get up, take a break, come back. Because that's giving your body time to just kind of meld into the new norm you're creating for yourself and lowering your anxiety,
Yeah.
So we have to be more focused on what our body is telling us, you know, especially when it's not what we're accustomed to. And
Yeah.
we're just babes in this newness of the way that we're living life now.
I don't know about you, where you live, but I know in my area, we're starting to open back up and going back to normal, whatever that normal looks like for people.
Yeah.
Um, and in the last, I don't know, I guess in the US, it's been about 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that. That
Okay.
normal was being home and, kind of
Mhm.
contained. And the choice to go back to work or to step out into whatever this new life looks like. Do you have any suggestions on how to navigate that, going back to what was normal 5 months ago and is now seems abnormal after being 6 or 8 weeks at home?
Exactly, exactly. Yes. Well, I think for most people, and I make this decision every day, even in my own, even though I'm an entrepreneur. But it's like if you're being asked by your company to come back into the office as if nothing has changed, there's a choice there. Maybe you have a conversation with your manager and say, you know what? How are we addressing? And this is very key because I've known of some companies that have put out the letter, we care about you and we're going to follow the guidelines and everything along these lines, only to find out that maybe they're not really, but they've said it. So it's about having those difficult conversations of saying, can you tell me how we are going to be expected to work? Um, and allow ourselves to have the distancing that we need and be as productive as we can be. And if they don't answer it the way you want to, then you have another choice of what you want to do within it. And you can make suggestions to your company and say, you know what if I could work from home on these days, continue as is, but then come in and be able to work on these other days. And I will tell you that I will wear a mask, I will social distance if that's, you know, what the CDC is still, or the guidelines are with everything. So you get to look at it from that viewpoint and take a really deep breath, because I know some people are really scared about asking that question. And yet, if you are the owner of a company or the manager or president or CEO of whatever of a company, be prepared to answer those questions, because it is your responsibility to follow guidelines and keep people safe. They're in your house. And it is everybody's house now coming into an office space. And what guidelines are you going to put out there that will be adhered to be able to support people's concerns and their fears and their questions? Because of everything that has gone on, there is no one out there that doesn't have a little bit of PTSD. We're all suffering from that just a little bit because it is scary, and we have to acknowledge that. And so maybe within a company, as a manager or something, maybe you can set up a call beforehand with your team to address what's going to go on within the office, within the work schedule. And some companies, I think, are going to be able to say, you know what, you did great work at home. Let's just continue that and continue going there.
Yeah, I love the fact that you pointed out that there is a mental health aspect to everything that's been going on for the past several months, and that there's
Mm-hmm.
going to be um, people that are dealing with that for some time to come. Um, I think, I mean, in my own personal world, I think recognizing and acknowledging that in myself
Yeah.
is really, I think, the being able to accept it, right?
Yeah.
That it's okay if you have some fear and you have some anxiety about going back to work or going back to whatever that normal is, or any of the transformation that's going on in the world right now,
Mm-hmm.
understanding that it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is the time, And this is where everything that's going on with the pandemic, with the systemic racism, Black Lives Matter and everything, this is where we need to make sure whatever we do, whoever we are, whatever group we're in, that we're having a container of safety and sanctuary, that it's okay to be vulnerable, more so than you ever have been before. And you won't get bullied, shamed, feedback, looked at sideways, rolled eyes, anything along those lines, or something inappropriate said. You know, we have to recognize that as we're moving forward in our transformation,
Mm-hmm.
that's where we get to go inside and begin to say, what have I done in the past that no longer I want to do moving forward? What comments have I made? What behaviorisms have I adopted that just really is not good for me anymore?
Yeah. It gives us the opportunity to grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this, all of the things that have happened it's
Yes.
given, I think, everybody, if they choose to, an opportunity to grow to that next level of whatever their life is.
Yeah, and I think, and that is absolutely right. And the choosing, as we said before, the difference between transformation and change. Right now, transformation is here. We don't have a choice. We're in it. You know, according to studies, statistics, et cetera, and everything, and so much of the unknown with the pandemic, we will probably be, it will probably be recommended, if not required, to wear a mask for the next 18 months. We don't know. That's how things are going to change. It's not as if this pandemic is one day going to up and disappear. And as a matter of fact, I just read an article with this infectious disease physician and scientist who said the worst case scenario is if the pandemic just up and disappeared and then came back later. And why that's the worst case is because we didn't get to study it. We didn't get to live with it and learn how to adapt to it. And that knowledge and data and scientific information is how we begin to let go of the unknown and appease some of our safety issues, knowing that, okay, we've done this and this is what works, so we can move forward in that way until we learn more and more and more and more with everything.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Denise. I loved this conversation, and honestly, I could keep talking with you, but we are at the end of our time. So for those that would like to get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
You know, you can, it's very simple. I am out there on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, everything. It's Denise, Denise, Hansard, Hansard. And so website, denisehansard.com, email denise@denisehansard.com. Connect with me. Let's have a conversation. I love that.
Awesome. That's
Thank
fantastic.
you.
I will have all of that information in the show notes below for everyone to connect with Denise. Thank you so much again for joining me today. It was such a fabulous conversation and such a pivotal time, I think, in our lives.
It is. And thank you, Jennifer, for allowing me to come on and share with your group. I really appreciate that.
I look forward to seeing everyone at our next talk. So thank you for joining me at Conversations with Coaches.